Hey there, welcome back to Plants Not Plastic. I'm Nikita, and today we're going to be making some peanut butter chocolate cookies that are delicious, inexpensive, simple, healthy, plant-based, low-fat, and oil-free. Before we jump into the video, I do want to say that I use sugar in this recipe. You can play around with an alternative, though I have never actually done that with this recipe before. You could use something simple and closer to a whole food like date sugar, which is just pulverized dried dates, so it still does have some fiber in it. Or if you want to use a liquid sweetener like maple syrup, I would just make sure that you are adjusting the liquid appropriately. So start by adding your maple syrup first and then add the water from there so that you don't end up with a batter that's too runny. The last thing I'll say is that I have turned these into actual cookies today, but keeping it as just a cookie dough is really, really good. This is the same case as with my chocolate chip cookies. If you roll them into balls and then freeze them, you can just keep them in the freezer and eat them raw. They are super, super tasty. And this batter specifically really reminds me of like a Reese's peanut butter cup. It's great for a cooler treat if you don't want to heat up your oven during the summer. All right, now with that, let's jump into the recipe. For my first ever recipe video on YouTube, I showed you how to make easy chocolate oatmeal cookies. For those times when you have a chocolate craving, but you want to avoid running to the store and buying junk food. These chocolate peanut butter cookies have a similar backstory. One night after dinner with a sweet tooth craving for chocolate chips, no chocolate chips and no almond butter in sight. But with a couple of easy swaps and the same base recipe as my chocolate chip cookies, I ended up with these delicious peanut buttery, chocolatey, delicious cookies that I immediately realized needed their own recipe. And honestly, that first night, I just ate the cookie dough raw because I could. It was delicious and reminded me of peanut butter cups, and if you want to eat this recipe the same way, I will not judge you. Before we get started, if you are new or you're hanging around and not yet subscribed, click the subscribe button and the bell so you get notifications whenever I upload a new video. I release new content weekly, but love to have you stick around and appreciate your support. You can also connect with me on social media for day-to-day content and subscribe to my blog for recipes right to your inbox. And give this video a thumbs up, it does really help. So here is everything you need to make this recipe. I'll also leave everything in the description box below, along with a link to the blog post with the nutrition label and printable recipe card. And as always, this recipe will cost you less to make, have more fiber, and you get to eat more of it for the same or less calories than a non-vegan or processed vegan alternative. So let's dive in. Start by blending up your oats to make a homemade oat flour. Then grab a medium mixing bowl, wipe off any water spots to make it pretty for the camera, then combine your dry ingredients. Oat flour, baking soda, optional salt, cane and brown sugar, and cocoa powder. Mix it all together and then add in your wet ingredients. The peanut butter, optional plant milk, vanilla extract, and 1 tablespoon of water at a time. Mixing until you get a very sticky dough that can almost form into a ball but starts to deflate or melt a little bit in the bowl if you let it sit or hold it up with a spoon. At this point, you want to cover the batter and stick it in your fridge or freezer to chill for 20 minutes before baking it, if you're baking it. I tend to check it at the halfway point, stir it again, and make sure the texture isn't too wet or too dry, and adjust as needed by adding more flour or water. If you're just making the cookie dough balls, I would suggest adding a little bit less water so that you can easily form them into full dough balls and freeze them for about an hour to get them to be hardened all the way. I didn't wait this long the first time that I ate them. They were still super tasty. You can eat the dough just straight out of the bowl if you want to, but if you want actual cookie dough balls to be able to like bite into, then you want to let them chill for a little bit longer. If you're baking them, preheat your oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit in the last 10 minutes of chilling. Remove the batter from the fridge or freezer and separate the dough into about 2 to 3 tablespoons of batter per cookie. And if your dough is drier or won't flatten out on its own after you've spread the dough out, use a fork or spoon to squish the dough down into cookie shapes before baking them. You want to bake for 15 to 18 minutes until the cookies are hardened on the outside. Let them cool for a couple of minutes and they are ready to serve up and enjoy. These cookies are sweet and chocolatey with that nice peanut butter flavor and have a soft, chewy, and flaky texture. They store great on the counter at room temperature and can be enjoyed for up to a week after making them if you put them in the fridge, though they will soften up a little bit over time. And if you want a more traditional chocolate cookie, you can check out that video here. And if you're looking for more plant-based, low-fat, oil-free, and even gluten-free desserts, you can check out that playlist here. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time. Bye!